How can I beg?
Overcome that.
Yeah, so let me word your question to everybody. You know? How can I beg? For me, it's not a matter of life and death. I fear the grace of God that crosses my way. I don't feel that I'm grabbing it. Let us go back to what I mentioned. If I remember well, I mentioned it last Saturday, and this is a key, I think, which is what? Understanding who we are in the eyes of Christ. Understanding who we are, not in our eyes. As you say, in my eyes, it's not a matter of life and death. So what happens is that I don't have that energy, that I'm not in a state of crisis in order to beg. I wish I was in a state of crisis, renewable state of crisis every day, because you have to renew it, but I'm not. So when I do Lectio Divina, as I said this morning, no, it's like, okay, can we have a tea and have a chat together, etc. So you don't have that. So what shall we do? I think what is important is to with our faith, to try to see how Jesus looks at us. What my faith is telling me about me. Who am I in the eyes of God? If God had a microscope or X-ray or a scan, what will He see in me? So this is a faith who is telling me that, not my eyes, not my perception of myself. Are you with me? The perception of myself is, well, it's okay. I'm more or less having a normal life, a normal Christian life. I'm faithful, I'm good, I don't do bad things, etc. So we are in the average, if you will. And I'm not in that state of crisis of that beggar. Is this what Jesus sees in me? So you see, there are two visions of myself. The vision and understanding of myself, and the vision and understanding that Jesus has of me right now. How can we go from one to the other? And I think there is a good indication that Jesus gives us in the St. John chapter 9, which is the story of the young blind man from birth. So the entire chapter 9 is on that blind man. The entire chapter 9. But this chapter is used to tell us about a blindness, a spiritual blindness. Not the physical blindness, but the spiritual blindness. And remember, toward the conclusion of that chapter 9, Jesus switches a little bit, because there is an argument between the Pharisees, the Jews, Pharisees, and Jesus and his disciples. How dare he do this? We know who he is, he can't do that, etc. So Jesus seems to lead us toward a conclusion, which is I'm about to explain. Jesus says, if you think you see, it's like, I know you're blind, but about yourself. But if you think you see, I can't do anything for you. You will remain blind. Or you will remain thinking that you see, which is the same. So the starting point of our faith when we sit down to listen to the Word of God is the following. I am ill and I need healing, but I don't see my illness. I am used to the tip of the iceberg, which is the knowledge I have of myself. Here is the iceberg. Here is the water. And the knowledge and experience, the awareness of myself covers that bit. Why am I not in a state of crisis? You understand what I mean? No, I don't want you to be in a state of crisis. I mean, in the common sense of it. But in the spiritual sense of it, the emergency, state of emergency. I'm not in a state of emergency. So it's not a matter of death and life. Why? Because the knowledge I have of myself, which is this green part here, this emerging green part in the iceberg, is not making me panicking. When would a good Christian panic? When, God forbid, he or she commits a grave sin. Then he would panic for his future, for his spiritual life, for God. But if I am fine, I'm sort of in the middle, I'm not doing bad things, I'm not a saint, but sort of, I'm fine, I'm in the middle. Nothing major really is happening in my life. There are no dangers in front of me. So I seem to be okay. And I'm doing good things. I'm faithful to the Lord. I'm helping here, I'm helping there. So you can't blame a person like that, humanly speaking. I'm not talking about you, be careful. I'm talking in general. Because if we start focusing on you, that's a disaster. It's me, it's everybody, okay? So, the knowledge I have of myself, I think I know myself. I'm going very slowly. I'm going very step by step. I think I know myself, and this is what I know about myself, and it doesn't seem to alarm me. But there is a huge part of me that remains unknown, unexplored. And I don't see it, by definition, I don't see it. The only thing I see is what is above the water. What is below water, by definition, I can't see it. So Jesus comes and says, I didn't come for people who are healthy, who are fine. I came for the people who are ill. What type of illness he's talking about? Spiritual illnesses. All sorts of spiritual illnesses. Now, what am I supposed to do? Shall I continue with the knowledge I have of myself, or shall I open the eyes of faith and become aware that 95% of my being remains unknown to myself? The inner part, the depth of my being, remain unknown to myself. The deep mechanisms of my being are still unknown to myself. I could fairly say that this 95% of my being has certainly areas of shadowy areas. So let us draw some shadow here in this area. It's not totally dark, but it has certainly some shadowy areas. And these areas need as well the redemption of Christ, but I have no awareness of them. Jesus is talking to people who know their faith. The Pharisees are, let us translate it into Christian Catholic language. The Pharisees are excellent Catholics. They are fervent Catholics. A little bit uptight and square, but they are fervent, fussy in certain things, but they are excellent Catholics. And he's talking to them, and he's saying, if you feel you're fine, well, I am of no use for you. You don't need me. So here comes the big question. Am I ill or am I fine? Do I need Jesus or not? That's the question. So my faith is telling me I am bigger than what I perceive. That's the truth. We are created at the image and likeness of Jesus, of God. And Jesus is God. He's not just a great man. He is God. So in me, there is a thirst. There is a space. I am of the size of God. I don't know how to put it in English for you. When you buy some gloves, I don't know, you need the correct size, or roughly the correct size. Imagine the human being is the glove, and the hand that enters in it is God Himself. So what is the size of that glove, the real size of that glove? You understand what I'm trying to say? Only God, we are the place of God, we are of the size of God. But we have no idea about this immensity of ourselves. These areas are not touched by God. So there is a lot of work to be done that remains unknown, below the water. So Jesus says to these people who are good Catholics, He says, you claim that you are seeing, therefore you will remain where you are, and He adds something that is even stronger, and it means something to them, your sins will remain. So this means that I am committing sins and I'm not aware of it. And on the contrary, I think that I am fine. You might say, but Jean, you are looking for trouble. You search for trouble. And I'm not searching for trouble. My starting point is what faith is telling me about the human being. The human being is immense. So if you reduce your understanding of God to just doing 2 or 3 good things during the week and going at Mass on Sunday, well, that's a disastrous vision of God. Because God is way more than that. God is for you. God is not for doing this and that. God is entirely for you. So what do you do with Him? Are you ready to receive Him at home? Are you ready to be pushed out of your comfort zone? Are you ready to come out of the safe areas and go wherever He will take you? That's the challenge. So, the sense of emergency that the blind man has, how can we have it? It's because of our faith that we will have it. It's because of what our faith is saying to us. My faith is telling me, be careful, don't be like a Pharisee. Because the gospel is written for us. So if the gospel is talking about Pharisees, it must be something in us. And the easiest thing is to say, well, the Pharisees, it's others. No, Pharisee is me. All of us have a little Pharisee jumping around, escaping from the light. So, the thing is that we need to corner that Pharisee. We need to allow the beam of light that comes out of Jesus to point on something here in this 95% of shadowy areas in me. What is Lectio Divina? Is Jesus' beam of light suddenly pointing on a new area in the shadowy areas of my being, the immersed part of my being. That's Lectio Divina. It's a part of me that enters the light of Jesus. A part of me that wasn't seeing, start to see. This is why Jesus says, if you claim that you see, well, sadly, you don't need me. Sadly, my hands are tied and I won't be able to do anything for you because of you. So I need to change that logic. When I approach Jesus, when I get closer to Jesus, I need to have a different approach. Not for the sake of blaming ourselves of anything, no. But just to say, certainly there must be something in me that you can change today. Because I'm not Jesus. Are you Jesus? Are you Jesus? You say, of course not, but that's not the good answer. The answer would be, I hope that Jesus is growing in me, so I then become like him. That's our destiny. We will see him, St. John says it in first letter. We will see him as he is. Why? Because we will be like him, transformed in him. This is our destiny. Our destiny is the growth of Jesus in us, the transformation of Jesus in us. Otherwise, be careful. Eternity could be a very boring screen. When I say screen, I mean like TV, no? Like cinema. Why? Because the container or the eye that could contemplate God, or the heart, is very reduced. While you are larger, you are bigger, way bigger than what you perceive of yourself. Oh, I'm a little person, I do this and I do that, and this is my life. No, you are a daughter of God. You are a son of God. Jesus has to grow and become, this little seed is supposed to become the biggest tree ever. Have you seen big trees? Have you seen big trees, huge, humongous trees? Like you need like 15 persons to hold their hands in order to cover that tree. Have you seen that? They exist, no? It's amazing, and the height and width is humongous. And in the beginning, how big was it? Small. So, would you like to remain small? Or would you like to grow? And how would you grow? If you say that you see, you will not be able to grow, because the mechanism of growth cannot be triggered. You understand? If the blind man thought he was still in a way fine, you can live if you are blind. It's not the end of the world. It is a huge struggle. We don't wish it to anybody, and eyes are very precious to all of us, and we take care of them. But he could have said, well, still okay, I'm still breathing, I still could do something, etc. No, his blindness became everything. It's a choice. You say, how can I do that? It's a choice you make. On which camp you want to be? On the camp of the people who are fine, healthy, or on the people who need Jesus, who need to be transformed, who need something more, who are not satisfied by what life is giving them. This is a choice we make in the beginning of Lectio, and we hold on to that, hang on to that, till the end. And this is our driving force. If you weren't convinced that there are shadowy areas, what's the point of doing Lectio Divina? Go and have a coffee better. Go and have a chit-chat with Jesus. It's better. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That's the key. So you start by saying, there are probably shadow areas in me, and I'm not happy with that, and this is why I am begging Jesus to change me. So it's a choice, and you increase the energy you put into that. Like the blind man, he could have said, well, it's not really a matter of life and death, I could still manage. And this is our escape from Lectio. I can still manage. It's not vital. Of course it's possible. I would say the majority of us would choose that instinctively. Why complicate your life? Why are you looking for trouble? I'm not looking for trouble. I'm looking for Jesus. I'm looking for something new. I want to change. I know that I could even be better. This is when I asked, are you Jesus? Your answer is no. Well then, there is a lot of work to be done. I didn't say something different. I said something very audacious. I said, are you Jesus? The answer is no. So it means there is still more to be done. There is still something to be done. Why? Because our destiny is to become like Him. Our destiny is to become like Him.